Hello, welcome to Bible study time and welcome to my quiet time Bible study. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me today. And I want to ask you if you could please hit the subscribe button if you're interested or if you find the subject matters that I approach interesting. And I really do appreciate all of the email discussions and correspondence. I am a little bit busy right now, so I'm a bit behind in replying, but within the next month or so, my schedule should open up and I will be working on some blogs from my website, QTBiblestudy.com, and also just working on some different Bible studies that I can upload once we've completed reading through the book of Jasher. So let's get right into it. This is the complete 54 book Apocrypha. For those of you who are new, and I noticed some of you are new. I don't really like to look at the analytics too much, but I noticed some of you are new. My Hebrew name is Ahava. And this book of Jasher is considered to be an extra canonical book. And we are just reading along together. And so for those of you who may have this book, I am going to continue where we left off in the previous video a couple weeks ago. And I'm going to continue reading from page 346 in chapter number 19. Let's begin. Beginning in verse 1. And the cities of Sodom had 4 judges for the 4 cities, and these were their names: Sirach in the city of Sodom, Sharkad in Gomorrah, Zabnak in Adma, and Menon in Zeboim. And Abraham's servant Eliezer applied different names to them, and he converted Sirach to Shakra, Shakad to Shakura, Zabnak to Kizobim, and Menon to Matzolodin. And by desire of their 4 judges, the people of Sodom and Gomorrah had beds erected in the streets of the cities. And if a man came to these places, they laid hold of him and brought him to one of their beds, and by force made him to lie in them. And as he lay down there, men would stand at his head and 3 at his feet, and measure him by the length of the bed. And if the man was less than the bed, these 6 men would stretch him at each end, and when he cried out to them, they would not answer. And if he was no longer than the bed, they would draw together the 2 sides of the bed at each end until the man had reached the gates of death. And if he continued to cry out to them, they would answer him, saying, "Thus it will be done to a man that comes into our land." And when men heard all these things that the people of the cities of Sodom did, they refrained from coming there. And when a poor man came to their land, they would give him silver and gold, and cause a proclamation in the whole city not to give him a morsel of bread to eat. And if the stranger should remain there some days and die from hunger, not having been able to obtain a morsel of bread, then at his death all the people of the city would come and take their silver and gold which they had given him. And those that could recognize the silver or gold which they had given him took it back. And at his death they also stripped him of his garments, and they would fight about them. And he that prevailed over his neighbor took them. After that they would carry him and bury him under some of the shrubs in the desert. So they did all the days to anyone that came to them, and died in their land. And in the course of time, Sarah sent Eleazar to Sodom to see Lot and inquire after his welfare. And Eleazar went to Sodom, and he met a man of Sodom fighting with a stranger. And the man of Sodom stripped the poor man of all his clothes and went away. And this poor man cried to Eleazar and supplicated his favor on account of what the man of Sodom had done to him. And he said to him, "Why do you act thus to the poor man who came to your land?" And the man of Sodom answered Eleazar, saying, "Is this man your brother? or have the people of Sodom made you a judge this day, that you speak about this man? And Eleazar strove with the man of Sodom on account of the poor man. And when Eleazar approached to recover the poor man's clothes from the man of Sodom, he hastened, and with a stone struck Eleazar in the forehead. And the blood flowed copiously from Eleazar's forehead. And when the man saw the blood, he caught hold of Eleazar, saying, "Give me my hire for having rid you of this bad blood that was in your forehead, for such is the custom and law in our land." And Eleazar said to him, "You have wounded me and require me to pay you your hire?" And Eleazar would not listen to the words of the man of Sodom. And the man laid hold of Eleazar and brought him to Shachra, the judge of Sodom, for judgment. And the man spoke to the judge, saying, "I implore you, my lord, thus this man has done. For I struck him with a stone, that the blood flowed from his forehead, and he is unwilling to give me my hire." And the judge said to Eleazar, "This man speaks truth to you. Give him his hire, for this is the custom in our land." And Eleazar heard the words of the judge, and he lifted up a stone and struck the judge. And the stone struck on his forehead, and the blood flowed copiously from the forehead of the judge. And Eleazar said, "If this then is the custom in your land, then you give to this man what I should have given him, for this has been your decision, you decreed it." And Eleazar left the man of Sodom with the judge, and he went away. And when the kings of Elam had made war with the kings of Sodom, the kings of Elam captured all the property of Sodom, and they took Lot captive with his property. And when it was told to Abraham, he went and made war with the kings of Elam, and he recovered from their lands all the property of Lot, as well as the property of Sodom. At that time the wife of Lot bore him a daughter, and he called her name Paltith, saying, "Because God has delivered him and his whole household from the kings of Elam." And Paltith, daughter of Lot, grew up, and one of the men of Sodom took her for a wife. And a poor man came into the city to seek a maintenance, and he remained in the city some days. And all the people of Sodom caused a proclamation of their custom not to give this man a morsel of bread to eat until he dropped dead on the earth. And they did so. And Paltith, the daughter of Lot, saw this man lying in the streets, starved with hunger, and no one would give him anything to keep him alive. And he was just on the point of death, and her soul was filled with pity on account of the man. And she fed him secretly with bread for many days, and the soul of this man was revived. For when she went out to fetch water, she would put the bread in the water pitcher, and when she came to the place where the poor man was, she took the bread from the pitcher and gave it to him to eat. So she did for many days. And all the people of Sodom and Gomorrah wondered how this man could bear starvation for so many days. And they said to each other, "This can only be that he eats and drinks, for no man can bear starvation for so many days, or live as this man has without even his countenance changing." And 3 men concealed themselves in places where the poor man was stationed to know who it was that brought him bread to eat. And Paltith, daughter of Lot, went out that day to fetch water, and she put bread into her pitcher of water. And she went to draw water by the poor man's place, and she took out the bread from the pitcher and gave it to the poor man, and he ate it. And the 3 men saw that what Paltith did to the poor man, and they said to her, "It is you then who have supported him, and therefore he has not starved, nor changed in appearance, nor died like the rest." And the 3 men went out of the place in which they were concealed, and they seized Paltith and the bread which was in the poor man's hand. And they took Paltith and brought her before their judges. And they said to them, "Thus did she do, and it is she who supplied the poor man with bread. Therefore he did not die all this time. Now therefore declare to us the punishment due to this woman for having transgressed our law." And the people of Sodom and Gomorrah assembled and kindled a fire in the street of the city, and they took the woman and cast her into the fire, and she was burned to ashes. And in the city of Adma there was a woman to whom they did not and in the city of Adma there was a woman to whom they did the like. For a traveler came into the city of Adma to abide there all night with the intention of going home in the morning. And he sat opposite the door of the house of the young woman's father to remain there, as the sun had set, when he had reached that place. And the young woman saw him sitting by the door of the house, and he asked her for a drink of water. And she said to him, "Who are you?" And he said to her, "I was going on the road this day and reached here when the sun set. So I will abide here all night, and in the morning I will arise early and continue my journey." And the young woman went into the house and fetched the man bread and water to eat and drink. And this affair became known to the people of Adma, and they assembled and brought the young woman before the judges that they should judge her for this act. And the judge said, "The judgment of death must pass on this woman because she transgressed our law, and therefore this is the decision concerning her." And the people of those cities assembled and brought out the young woman and anointed her with honey from head to foot, as the judge had decreed. And they placed her before a swarm of bees which were in their hives, and the bees flew on her and stung her, that her whole body was swelled. And the young woman cried out on account of the bees, but no one took notice of her nor pitied her, and her cries ascended to heaven. And the Lord was provoked at this and at all the works of the cities of Sodom, for they had abundance of food and had tranquility among them, and still would not sustain the poor and the needy. And in those days their evil doings and sins became great before the Lord. And the Lord sent for 2 of the messengers that had come to Abraham's house to destroy Sodom and its cities. And the messengers rose up from the door of Abraham's tent after they had eaten and drunk, and they reached Sodom in the evening. And Lot was then sitting in the gate of Sodom. And when he saw them, he rose to meet them, and he bowed down to the ground. And he pressed them greatly and brought them into his house. And he gave them victuals which they ate, and they stayed all night in the house. And the messengers said to Lot, "Arise, go out from this place, you and all belonging to you, lest you be consumed in the iniquity of the city, for the Lord will destroy this place." And the messengers laid hold on the hand of Lot, and on the hand of his wife, and on the hands of his children, and all belonging to him, and they brought him out and set him outside the cities. And they said to Lot, "Escape for your life." And he fled, and all belonging to him. Then the Lord rained on Sodom and Gomorrah, and on all these cities brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. And he overthrew these cities, all the plain, and all the inhabitants of the cities, and that which grew on the ground. And Adu, the wife of Lot, looked back to see the destruction of the cities, for her compassion was moved on account of her daughters who remained in Sodom, for they did not go with her. And when she looked back, she became a pillar of salt, and it is yet in that place to this day. And the oxen which stood in that place daily licked up the salt to the extremities of their feet, and in the morning it would spring out afresh, and they again licked it up to this day. And Lot and 2 of his daughters that remained with him fled and escaped to the cave of Adullam, and they remained there for some time. And Abraham rose up early in the morning to see what had been done to the cities of Sodom. And he looked and beheld the smoke of the cities going up like the smoke of a furnace. And Lot and his 2 daughters remained in the cave. And they made their father drink wine, and they lay with him, for they said there was no man on earth that could raise up seed from them, for they thought that the whole earth was destroyed. And they both lay with their father, and they conceived and bore sons, and the firstborn called the name of her son Moab, saying, "From my father I conceived him. He is the father of the Moabites to this day." And the younger also called her son Benami. He is the father of the children of Ammon to this day. And after this, Lot and his 2 daughters went away from there, and he dwelt on the other side of the Jordan with his 2 daughters and their sons. And the sons of Lot grew up, and they went and took wives for themselves from the land of Canaan, and they beget children, and they were fruitful and multiplied. Moving on to our final chapter for today. We're only going to do 2 chapters, and I'm moving on to chapter 20, beginning in verse number 1. And at that time, Abraham journeyed from the plain of Mamre, and he went to the land of the Philistines, and he dwelt in Gerar. It was in the 25th year of Abraham's being in the land of Canaan, and the 100th year of the life of Abraham, that he came to Gerar in the land of the Philistines. And when they entered the land, he said to his wife Sarah, "Say you are my sister to anyone that will ask you, in order that we may escape the evil of the inhabitants of the land." And as Abraham was dwelling in the land of the Philistines, the servants of Abimelech, king of the Philistines, saw that Sarah was exceedingly beautiful, and they asked Abraham concerning her, and he said, "She is my sister." And the servants of Abimelech went to Abimelech, saying, "A man from the land of Canaan has come to dwell in the land, and he has a sister that is exceedingly attractive." And Abimelech heard the words of his servant who praised Sarah to him, and Abimelech sent his officers, and they brought Sarah to the king. And Sarah came to the house of Abimelech, and the king saw that Sarah was beautiful, and she pleased him exceedingly. And he approached her and said to her, What is that man to you with whom you come to our land?" And Sarah answered and said, "He is my brother, and we come from the land of Canaan to dwell wherever we could find a place." And Abimelech said to Sarah, "Behold, my land is before you. Place your brother in any part of this land that pleases you, and it will be our duty to exalt and elevate him above all other people of the land, since he is your brother." And Abimelech sent for Abraham, and Abraham came to Abimelech. And Abimelech said to Abraham, "Behold, I have given orders that you will be honored as you desire on account of your sister." And Abraham went from the king, and the king's present followed him. As at evening time came, before men lie down to rest, the king was sitting on his throne, and a deep sleep fell on him, and he lay on the throne and slept until morning. And he dreamed that a messenger of the Lord came to him with a drawn sword in his hand. And the messenger stood over Abimelech and wished to slay him with the sword. And the king was terrified in his dream, and said to the messenger, "In what have I sinned against you, that you come to slay me with your sword?" And the messenger answered and said to Abimelech, "Behold, you die on account of the woman which you brought to your house last night, for she is a married woman, the wife of Abraham, who came to your house. Now therefore return that man his wife, for she is his wife. And should you not return her, know that you will surely die, you and all belonging to you." And on that night there was a great outcry in the land of the Philistines. And the inhabitants of the land saw the figure of a man standing with a drawn sword in his hand, and he struck the inhabitants of the land with the sword. Yes, he continued to strike them. And the messenger of the Lord struck the whole land of the Philistines on that night. And there was a great confusion on that night and on the following morning. And every womb was closed, and all their issues, and the hand of the Lord was on them on account of Sarah, the wife of Abraham, whom Abimelech had taken. And in the morning Abimelech rose with terror and confusion, and with a great dread, and he sent and had his servants called in, and he related his dream to them, and the people were greatly afraid. And one man sitting among the servants of the king answered the king, saying, "O sovereign king, restore this woman to her husband, for he is her husband. For the like happened to the king of Egypt, when this man came to Egypt, and he said concerning his wife, She is my sister, for such is his manner of doing when he comes to dwell in the land in which he is a stranger." And Pharaoh sent and took this woman for a wife, and the Lord brought grievous plagues on him until he returned the woman to her husband. Now therefore, O sovereign king, know what happened last night to the whole land, for there was a very great consternation and great pain and lamentation, and we know that it was on account of the woman which you took. Now therefore, restore this woman to her husband, lest it should befall us as it did to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and his subjects, and that we may not die. And Abimelech hastened and called, and had Sarah called for, and she came before him, and he had Abraham called for, and he came before him. And Abimelech said to him, what is this work you have been doing in saying you are brother and sister, and I took this woman for a wife? And Abraham said, because I thought I should suffer death on account of my wife. And Abimelech took flocks and herds and men servants and maid servants and 1,000 pieces of silver, and he gave them to Abraham, and he returned Sarah to him. And Abimelech said to Abraham, behold, the whole land is before you. Dwell in it wherever you will choose. And Abraham and his wife Sarah went out from the king's presence with honor and respect. And they dwelt in the land, even in Gerar. And all the inhabitants of the land of the Philistines and the king's servants were still in pain through the plague which the messenger had inflicted on them the whole night on account of Sarah. And Abimelech sent for Abraham, saying, now pray to the Lord your God for your servants, that he may put away this mortality from among us. And Abraham prayed on account of Abimelech and his subjects, and the Lord heard the prayer of Abraham, and he healed Abimelech and his subjects. And this now brings me to the end of chapter 20, and that also brings me to the end of this video recording for today. And I'm so grateful to the Most High Creator God, the God of all gods, the God of all spirits, for just really helping me get through a particularly difficult situation this week. I want to thank you guys for joining me. I want to invite you to continue to join me, not only on this read-along series, but on my website. I'll be posting a blog in February. And also, I want to invite you to continue to join me on my channel as we delve into deeper, more meaty subjects that many different denominations of Christianity and organized religion do not cover. And before I say goodbye, I want to remind all of you that the Most High Creator God of the universe, Yahweh, who sent his son, Yahoshua HaMashiach, to die for all of our sins, loves all of his children.